Hello everyone, welcome to CAD Builder version 1.4.3. Let's check out what's new. So if you head on over to the construction module, you'll notice that we have folders now, both within the construction cabinet as well as the DrawerBox construction method, which you can also do so for your connections. To create a new folder, simply go to the bottom left, click create, and then select whether you're making a new construction method or a new folder. We'll say it's a new folder. And then decide whether it's going to be a subfolder of what you're currently looking at, which would be the default folder by default, or if it's going to be an equal peer. Then name the folder at the top. We'll say new folder for now, and then hit create. There's our new folder, and to drag in some construction methods into said folder, you just click and drag from other menus. So I'll just click and drag from the default folder into my new folder down here. So this will allow you to do is organize your construction methods a lot more efficiently, especially if you tend to make new construction methods from every job, or maybe making slight tweaks here and there, job by job. This will certainly keep your huge list of construction methods a lot more tidy. On the top of construction methods, you'll also notice we have a new type of shelf. So if you go to the shelves section, here you'll see angled shelves. And they are exactly what they sound like. It's just a shelf that's been angled. You go through most default parameters for a shelf, whether it has a bull nose, the space from the front, grain direction, edge banding, etc. And then you have this default shelf angle parameter. This is something that you can change shelf by shelf within the wireframe editor as well. This will be the default value that it has when you do bring in an angled shelf. And you can apply just about any joint that can be applied to a shelf can be applied to the angled shelf. So if you go to your joint section, into your joints, angled shelf, you can apply a joint to the side, to the back, to the clip back. I'll, for instance, apply a data connection for this shelf. And let's see what that looks like. So now if you were to go to a design, I'll drop in some cabinet with a shelf and apply that construction method. And I go to the wireframe editor. Here you will see by default we have an adjustable shelf, but if we were to change it to an angled shelf, we can see this through dado that I made. I probably would want to make it a half-plane dado instead, but any connection, dado, connector, line boring will be able to apply to that angled shelf. But you can also angle normal shelves as well. So if I wanted it to be an adjustable shelf, but I wanted that adjustable shelf to be angled, I can select it. Here I have the shelf angle parameter. And when I change that to, let's say, 15 degrees, the shelf will be angled and so will the joinery. So if it was shelf line bore, those holes will be offset to make this angled happen. And if you remember from the last update, we have these new notches that you can place directly in the adjustable shelf parameters. And this will allow, when they're cut in real life, for them to be locked into a shelf pin and not slide forward. So this allows you to create some angle shelves that you previously could not do so within CAD Builder. Now onto the topic of hinges. If you go to your materials section and you select a hinge, let's say this 71B 3550, and you were to set its type to some kind of euro and either configurable or one of the manufacturers, there will be a new button called configure. And this will open up the hinge boring distance table. So when you have some hinge and hinge plate combination, the hinge needs a specific distance from the edge of the door to where the hinge cup hole starts for it to enact that action, for it to actually execute the movement that you're trying to create. And these tables will control what these boring distances are automatically. So at the top, you first select the situation you will use the hinge for, and then you select whether the table should be inputting overlay values or reveal values. And then at the bottom, you have the table itself, or on the left, you have the hinge plate heights. At the bottom, you have the boring distance required, and in the middle, you have the overlay or reveal value that the hinge will be shooting for. So for instance, if I were to be using the hinge with a 13mm overlay within my construction method, what would I need to do for it to have that movement? Well, I would first need to pair it up with a 3mm hinge, and I will need that boring distance to be 5. So once I do apply that 3mm hinge, CAD Builder will just look at this table and know that it needs to use 5mm boring distance, and therefore it will know where to program the hole when you're setting your doors to the CNC. You can create new tables or new rows by clicking add at the top right. So here's where you add a new row or add a new column, and the inverse of that, here's where you delete a row, column, or table. And when you add a new table, you just select where you would be using this hinge in what type of situation. So you have your frameless and framed overlay, you have a frameless and framed inset, and then you have your dual application when you mount to a partition that we call frameless dual. And each of these will then have its own corresponding table, and that's how that works. These tables were already there before. They would just be held in the background for Bloom hinges. But now if you're going to be making a custom hinge from either some other manufacturer that we don't have in here or a custom hinge of your own, you can come in here and create new tables and make this action happen. This is mostly going to be useful for CNC licenses because it's important for them where these hinge borings are created, and specifically CNC users who will be sending their slab, one-piece MDF or two-piece MDF door to the CNC. This can also be useful for non-CNC users because if CAD Builder cannot find the appropriate combination with the hinge plate that you've assigned, then it will give you a warning. The last utility we'll take a look at would be the rough cutout. So if you go to your tools library and you select a tool, you'll notice a new toolpath type called rough cutout. And if you enable this for a tool bit and include it in your tool set, then CAD Builder will try to first send that tool bit as a rough cut around the finishing edge of your parts, and then send the normal cutout bit to do the final finishing pass, the final cutout portion. Now this is the first phase. It's not going to apply an offset to the tool bit to make a rough cut on the outside edge. It will make the actual finished face with that roughing tool bit and then do the final cutout portion after that. So this will be useful for people who are using, let's say, a down cut as their first pass and then an up cut as their second pass. So once you've enabled that, just make sure you have that tool bit in the tool set, and then CAD Builder will make this two-pass cutout operation. As always, you can view our release notes on our website at cadbuildersoftware.com/release notes for a full list of changes. Thank you, and we will see you in the next video.